Hello and welcome to today's special event on battling cybercrime with Unified Endpoint Management. Today's event is brought to you in partnership with Quest Case and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is David Davis, and I'm excited to be your moderator on today's event. Now, before we get started, we have a little bit of housekeeping that we first need to cover. First off, we want this to be a very educational event. So we encourage you to ask questions in the GoToWebinar control panel using the questions pane right there. And we'll be answering those questions in a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the event. We've already got some great questions coming in, and I'm queuing those up for that Q&A session. So I encourage you to get your question in as soon as it comes to your mind, and we'll be covering the best questions and as many questions as possible at the end of the event. We'll also be awarding an Amazon $300 gift card to one lucky attendee on the live event today. If you're watching this event on demand, I'm sorry, the drawing has already occurred. You can find the full prize terms and conditions at events.actualtechmedia.com. Now, I want to call your attention to the handouts tab in the GoToWebinar control panel there as well. That's where you can find a handout from Quest with the 5 steps to battling cybercrime with Unified Endpoint Management. And make sure that you check that out because that has additional information beyond what you'll learn in the event today. So go ahead and just click and download that now. It's in the handouts tab. And with that, I'm excited to introduce today's presenter. That is Mr. Bruce Johnson, Technical Sales Consultant at Quest. Bruce, thanks for being on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, before I hand it over to Bruce, I want to first review what you'll learn on today's event and then talk about the state of endpoint security for just a moment. So on today's event, we have really 3 objectives here. You're going to learn about why you need to protect your endpoints, what's so important about protecting your endpoints. You'll learn how to implement an endpoint security strategy with the Case solution and how Case protects your endpoints with a lot of different live demos. Bruce has some really great live demos lined up for you today. So first off, why is it so important that we protect our endpoints from cyber attack? I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen if just a single endpoint gets attacked or is breached, right? If you have a single endpoint breach, what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, the answer is a lot. Statistics tell us that a new business will fall victim to ransomware every 14 seconds in 2019 and every 11 seconds by 2021. So, I mean, think about that. In just 14 seconds, a new business has already fallen victim to a ransomware attack. So you might think, oh, it's not going to happen to me, but unfortunately, if you're not protected, the odds are that it will. There's been a recent story in the news just a couple of weeks ago where hackers attacked the city of Baltimore and held their entire IT infrastructure and all their data hostage for 2 weeks. And they even took documents that they stole and they posted them on Twitter, and they publicly antagonized the city leaders and the mayor on Twitter. It's a very horrific attack. And it's been rumored that the hacking tool that was leaked online by the NSA called Eternal Blue, which was also used to distribute the massive WannaCry ransomware infection, by the way, in the past, was used to distribute this attack, but that's been debated. Either way, it doesn't matter exactly how it was distributed. The end result is that they were attacked, and this is just a single example of a ransomware attack. But it seems like there's new stories every night, in the news, on the internet about government organizations, healthcare companies, retailers, and more small businesses that don't make the news that are being infected by ransomware. In fact, I mean, my good friend had his baby pictures held ransom. He was talking about on Twitter last year. So prior to this example, one of the worst examples I was using when I talked about ransomware was the city of Atlanta, who was actually shut down or destabilized for months and spent $2.6 million in that recovery, with those expenditures being spent on digital forensics, extra staffing, cloud infrastructure expertise, and as well as communication services, public relations, incident response consulting from Ernst & Young. They spent $600,000 on that alone. So, I mean, think about that, $2.6 million. Most companies, unless you're a large company or a city or something like that, a government, you don't have $2.6 million sitting around to recover, nor do you have 2 months to solve their problems. A couple more statistics here before we move on, and that is that roughly 50% of companies don't feel prepared for security threats today. And Bruce, if you could go to the next slide, please.
Yeah.
And cybercrime damage is expected to hit $6 trillion by 2021. So these are just some more staggering, statistics. And when it comes down to it, the points, these are some scary, points when it comes to data breaches, but it's the endpoints in many cases that are the source of these data breaches. And so the endpoints include not just your local desktop or laptop, but even, bring your own desktop devices, mobile devices, Internet of Things devices, or IoT devices. So organizations really have to have endpoint security in place if they have any hope of protecting themselves from a data breach. So if we review exactly what does endpoint security provide you, it provides you visibility, of course, across all your endpoint devices, no matter what type of device it is. It provides you an inventory, which is something that a lot of companies, don't have an accurate, up-to-date, even inventory of their devices. It provides you antivirus software deployment, so you can protect yourself and prevent those, malicious pieces of code ever being run on your endpoints. Automated software patching to keep your software up to date. Automated reimaging, if something does happen and you need to quickly reimage an endpoint or multiple endpoints, you can do that quickly with endpoint security tools. Mobile device management, you want to make sure it includes mobile device management, because in more and more cases, our data is being spread across mobile devices. Monitoring of administrative privileges to make sure that local users don't have administrative privilege, and then restricting USB ports, because a lot of times these malicious pieces of code can come in through a USB device that someone plugs in to the computer. So here's the challenge that I'm going to throw over to Bruce. How should a company tackle the problem of endpoint cybersecurity, and specifically, how can it be done with CASE? Bruce?
Oh, thank you very much. I can definitely answer that question. So to address your endpoint cybersecurity with CASE, we have kind of a nice little recipe here for you, and it's these 5 steps we've come up with to help address your endpoint security. And the strategy we have starts first with your inventory management and deploying your antivirus. So you can't begin to start to lock all your doors in your house until you know how many doors you have in your house, right? So first off, it comes with that visibility and inventory discovery, knowing what's out in your environment and keeping what's out there, entrusted with your antivirus that you're using. And later when I touch on the admin rights piece, if someone has the ability to say to remove their antivirus, do you have visibility into that? You may have put it on there when you first pushed it out, but that's all part of that visibility step, knowing what's out there and knowing, you got to know what to secure before you can secure it first. And the next, securing it, actually keeping things up to date with your patch management and vulnerability scanning, being not just the operating system, but more often than not, it's those third-party applications, and being able to keep those up to date that I see a lot of my customers are not doing, or they're doing only part of it. So once you've discovered what you had and you're now patching those things, and you're looking for those vulnerabilities and getting information on that, what if something does get breached? You need to be able to reimage that machine, right? Let's just say it's totally infected. You could actually use our deployment appliance to actually reimage that machine with just a click of a button, and not only reimage it, but let's say you wanted to even try and run some advanced security run tools on it outside of Windows. You could do that with our kind of the step 3 here. Step 4, the mobile device management, right? So being able to keep track of, you have those laptops, desktop servers, and things like that that you're managing, but What about your mobile devices too? Maybe you have enterprise-owned devices. Maybe they're bringing their own device, iOS, Android devices. Being able to keep track of those, know how they're configured, and being able to recover those or wipe them if they're lost. That's kind of the mobile device part there. And the next and last step is being able to control the admin rights piece and the device security. So things on the user level, what kind of rights does that user have to their machine? What kind of things does they run as an administrator? Is one thing I see a lot of vulnerabilities come from. I know some companies in the past have had some vulnerabilities that have leaked, like credit card data and things like that. Those big retailers got in because they were able to run something from a local admin privilege, and that user had full admin rights to everything. But something like we can control here in step 5 helps prevent those kind of things from happening and gives just the right access they need. And those 5 steps are all covered with our whole little enchilada here, our circle of fun here. And it starts with the deployment appliance. So being able to deploy out a consistent image and environment to all your devices that you have, and kind of like we touched on already, being able to re-image that machine and recover it if something does happen. So we can actually do things outside of Windows in here to help recover data off of it, or maybe do an antivirus scan, or at the very, the worst case scenario with the deployment appliance, we can actually wipe that device and keep it secured. And then for the step 2, we talked about patching and inventory tracking and pushing out your antivirus and the vulnerability scanning. That's what our management appliance does. It's sort of our Swiss Army tool of tools, if you will, being able to do all that in one place. And then for your mobile device management, we have our Case Cloud Mobile Device Manager. This will keep track of all your iOS and Android devices, secure them and track them and wipe them, and all those good things we do with the mobile devices. And then the user side of things, that USB device security and the local admin rights, that's what our desktop authority and our privilege manager pieces do there. So from a holistic standpoint, being able to manage everything from your devices management here, these kind of 3 over there, to the user side of things, the admin rights, the USB device control, it's kind of covered here in that part of that circle. So that just kind of to reframe there, again, kind of talked a little bit about kind of what the landscape looks like today as far as why secure your endpoints, right? I mean, could you just leave all your doors unlocked in your house and leave your endpoints unsecured? Yeah, you probably could. I mean, people do it now. They forget to lock their doors, and okay, yeah, that might not be a big deal to you, but like we've seen some of those previous stories, that can have drastic, problems that can happen. F2 leading to monetary loss and even loss of your whole company. I've seen companies go completely under from just one small little vulnerability they have. So can you protect against everything? No, you can lock all your doors in your house and someone could still find a way in, right? But it's kind of keeping the honest people honest, right? Someone that just wants to walk in and oh, I just want to run this tool to grab all your data. Well, have some kind of basic protection is kind of what we're kind of touch on here today.
So Bruce, you said step 1 is to automate inventory management and deploy antivirus software. I mean, I'm curious, for companies out there that don't have anything in place, how are they doing this today? How are they doing it manually? I mean, what have you seen, and what's the impact of that?
So a lot of what I see today with the inventory management are, you'd be surprised at how many it's just a spreadsheet. People are, they're starting, maybe they started small, maybe they only had 20 machines they had to keep track of at first, when they first started their company. So they're just like, okay, we'll just write down what we own in a spreadsheet. Well, when that starts to grow to 100, 200, 300, 1,000 devices, they start to realize managing machines and that amount of, that sheer scope of devices, it's not capable of doing that. And there's free tools out there that can do all these different parts, but not the whole. And we can do all of this in one place too. So being able to automate that not only saves you time from having to update these kind of sheets manually, and having to walk to each machine and make sure it's still there and writing any new changes down to it, but it also ensures by having an automated system that you're not missing something, because where there's humans involved, there's going to be errors, right? That's just the way we're designed. We're going to have mistakes. But having something that is programmable that can go out and grab that new information, we can not only get that information from it, but we can build automation on top of that. So let's say we get information back from those devices, I can trigger things based on that information. And I'll kind of show you that here in a little bit when we talk about the antivirus part of that.
Yeah, great point. I mean, the highest cost that any IT organization has is salary, the salary of their employees. And, employees shouldn't be spending their time manually keeping track of a massive spreadsheet and walking around trying to do inventories of their devices. So tell us how this works with Case.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to walk you through kind of what it's going to look like from the inventory discovery part of it here. So I'm going to flip over here to my environment and actually share kind of what this will look like. So I've switched over here. This is our management appliance interface. So part of the discovery portion here, I'm gonna go in here into my inventory section, and from this dashboard, actually, just right here, I can see kind of an overview of all my different parts of my data, of all my devices here. So I can see, what their memory is. I can see what the disk space capacity is. So maybe disks are starting to run out of space. I can see my models and operating systems. So right here at a glance, I already have a lot of information available to me. And then I can dig in further and see all of my devices. Everything that has an IP address, we can discover and list here inside of your inventory here. So not just laptops or desktops or servers, but we can list any number of different kinds of devices in here. We can even do printers and routers and switches and mobile devices. Basically anything with an IP address, we can have listed in here. And I'm going to bring up just kind of a list of a couple different kind of example devices. So I've got some devices in here that are just laptops here. So these are just some laptops I have in here. But I've also got like a Raspberry Pi device. So maybe you have some Raspberry Pi devices. I see a lot of oil companies like to use these to track their oil pipeline. Starting to get into IoT a little bit there. So again, it has an IP address. We can keep track of it. Again, you're not having to manually go to those devices and keep track of them. And we also have printers. So with printers, we can keep track of the make, the model, the toner levels. We can use things like SNMP to grab the SNMP data from those and actually create alerts. Maybe there's a toner jam. Maybe that SNMP device has some other kind of data that you want to pull off of it. Doesn't matter what it is. We can retrieve it back in here and do alerts, either with the notification section up here, or we can create reports too and have them emailed to you. So with this grabs all of your information off all of your devices and lets you pull it onto one central database. And sort of, we kind of touched a little bit too on, being able to push out your antivirus software, for example. So let's say on this device here, it was missing my McAfee antivirus. So I'll come into here and kind of show what that might look like. So under here, I can see all this software that's installed on this machine right here. And again, we're going to have an up-to-date list of all this. So this goes out every hour or two and goes and gets a current inventory of what's on this machine. So if I look through here and I can't find my McAfee antivirus, then okay, well, I know I have a problem. But are you going to be able to do that on every single machine every day? What if it happens when you're out to lunch? And in that meantime, something's already got in at that point. So again, not only just knowing what's on them, but creating automation around it and alerting. So from here, I could actually say, okay, I want to target any machines that are missing my antivirus. I want to know if they're missing that. So I'm going to look at, I'm going to create what's called a smart label here. This is going to let me go and actually target machines where the software title and then doesn't have the word McAfee in it. So any machines that don't have a software title with the word McAfee in them, I want it to show to me. And I'm going to add another identifier. Since we grab all kinds of other different types of devices, I'm going to tell it I want to look at just machines that has our agent. So I want to look at ones that have the agent instead of have it kind of rule out printers and things like that. I could even go a step further and add an IP range and say, okay, show me just ones in this IP range for it. But we'll keep it just to that right now. So then I could say I'm going to give this a name, and I can say devices sans McAfee. We'll just call it that. Give it kind of more of a fun name there. So I could create this label right here. And what's great is as my machines check in, they'll fall in and out of this label that I've created. So right now it says I have about 302 devices down here in the bottom left that are missing McAfee on there. So if I wanted to, let's say, push this out to 300 of them, it would show, okay, there's only 2 left in that label that don't have it. And I can take that into a software distribution job, which we call our managed installations here. And I can create a job, and I've already got one I've already kind of made down here for my McAfee antivirus. I can upload my file, whatever files you got, setup.exe, it can be zip file, MSI, doesn't matter what it is, works on Windows, Mac, and Linux. I can give it any kind of switches it needs to, so maybe it's just a /qn/i to install it. And then I can target it at that label that I just made. So I could come in here and look for my McAfee label. I think, don't know if it's gonna, yeah, I don't think it's gonna populate just yet, but we'll just pretend it's this one right here. So we can target that with that smart label for our McAfee devices. We could even give them an alert and say, hey, your McAfee's now installed if it's been removed. And I can either run it now, or I can say next time they check in, just go ahead and install it. So every time it's going to look to see if it has this McAfee antivirus. If it doesn't, it'll just install it right back. So you always have visibility, not only into if it has this software that you need on it to keep it secure, but you can automatically just have it pushed out to any and all the machines that need it. So kind of recap, that kind of, addressing the, being able to keep track of all of your devices, discover new devices as they come onto your network, and being able to secure those devices by making sure your antivirus is on them. We have that part covered. That's kind of step 1, right? So now kind of bring us to step 2. Let's go to step 2 here. Patch management and vulnerability scanning.
Yeah, so when it comes to patch management and vulnerability scanning, I mean, I'm curious, is it enough to just do Microsoft patching, the free Microsoft updating? Or, I mean, what about third-party tools and applications and reporting? How does that work with the case solution?
Good question. So, like I kind of touched on it a little bit and earlier too, but there's a lot of my customers that will do just the built-in Windows tools to update their applications and operating system. But those built-in tools usually don't include things for third-party applications like Adobe products or Java or things like that. And I see those more often than not, ones that have more of the vulnerabilities. I mean, think about how many times you get update notifications for Adobe Reader and Java alone. Those are just 2 right there. And if you rely on your end users to just, I'll just let my end users update those, they're probably not very concerned about that. They're like, okay, well, my admin probably has some other thing. They kind of rely on the air of the IT, magician, the man behind the curtain. That, he's probably got some stuff that keeps me protected on there, right? So everyone's assuming, okay, well, yeah, maybe I need to update it, maybe I don't. They really don't really think about it. They're just there they're driving the car. I just need to make sure my car gets me where I'm going. Their laptop to them is their tool. I just need to use it. I need to get my Outlook set up. I need to check my emails. I need to run my reports for my sales, things coming up. They don't have time to worry about, updating Adobe Reader. Like, I don't care. Just, okay, I'll delay it till later. So letting your end users rely on it, and some 0-day update comes out that, oh yeah, people that don't have this, if someone opens an Adobe file, it could just, automatically send out all their personal data. They don't know that stuff. They don't keep up with it. So that's what I see more often than not. They're using the Windows tools, or they're just relying for those kind of applications. They don't update. They just let their end users do it. Not only that, but if there's problems with certain applications that are kind of dependencies, like Java's a really big one, there may be some update that breaks something. And again, if you're letting your end users just do it, then how are you knowing, if something's going to break something? And then you have to backpedal and go, I got to pull that patch back out now. So you start to get in kind of a pickle if you kind of neglect those kind of applications from both a, kind of a, not only a security standpoint, but from a practical standpoint too, from just a, day-to-day business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also curious about, beyond patching of, operating system and third-party apps, about vulnerability scanning. What can you show us there in the demo? Maybe an example of a vulnerability that the case solution was able to find.
Yeah, so what we have built in is we have the ability to do what's called OVAL scans and SCAP scans. So OVAL and SCAP are acronyms. OVAL's Open Vulnerability Assessment Language. I can't remember what SCAP is off the top of my head. It's security control, and I can't remember now, something like that. But they're scanning tools built into the tool that typically you have to purchase a third-party tool to do these kind of scans with, and may spend thousands of dollars on even. But this is just a part of the solution. And I'm kind of show you. So from both the patch management standpoint and the security standpoint, the vulnerability scanning, I'll kind of show you what that lends to that. So I'm going to switch over here again to my live environment here. So from the patching standpoint, I'm going to stretch on that first. So both of these things I'm going to talk about are under our security section, which makes sense, right? Because we're scanning for vulnerabilities, we're patching things. So from here, for patching, I can set it up to subscribe to whatever kind of things I need to keep patched. I can just let Case decide for me. It just looks at your inventory, for example, and says, what operating systems do you going to manage? We'll go ahead and patch those for you. Or you can say, I just want to do just certain ones. Maybe I don't. For some reason, I don't need to patch all my operating systems. And then you can tell it, okay, maybe I just need critical type ones. I don't need to get the recommendeds. I don't even want to patch those. I just need to worry about the security updates. And then for the third-party applications, there's a ton of vendors we support. So these are just the vendors we have in here. So anywhere from Adobe to Java, Notepad++ is in there, Opera, Foxit Reader, you name it. There's a bunch of vendors in there. We automatically get patches downloaded from them and push them out to your devices. So once you subscribe to what you need, you can just simply let Case decide for you there too. You can create a schedule to run whenever you like. You can set it to do a scan and install, or detect and deploy, however you like to call it. Using that same smart label technology we looked at earlier, you can target at machines that do or don't have certain software or IP ranges or any number of things. You can automatically target those machines, and then you could simply just say, you know what, I just want it to go out and install everything. I don't need to tell it anything special, just whatever is scanned for and needed on those machines, just to install them. So you can make it very simple. Or using that same kind of smart label system, you can create, I like to call them auto approval workflows. So these patch labels I have in here, like these ones, for example, are patches released in the last 30 days. So I could set up schedules that maybe just do catch up for some machines, or maybe I just patch certain ones. Maybe I just want to do like Adobe patches, just the critical ones. So you can set up specific kinds of patches for certain specific sets of machines too. So this gives you both the flexibility to make it very simple and say, just patch everything that's needed, or be able to give you more specific control and power over what kind of patches need to go to which machines. You can also set, notifications. You can say, let them know there's a patch schedule that's going to run, or you can have it just run silently in the background. They don't even know what's happening. You can give them any number of kind of prompts for reboot. So if let's say there's no one logged in, it'll just reboot, but maybe there is. You can give them a prompt and give them a couple chances, or say, hey, reboot me in 2 hours. You can also just force it to reboot, or you can say, no, don't reboot, I'll reboot it manually later. You can have this scheduled to run anytime you want, every 8 hours, every third Tuesday, every other Friday, only the 21st of the month, whenever you want. You can even have it respect your time zones where the endpoint's located. So if you want to cross time zones, you can say run at 2 o'clock, a.m. in whatever time zone those machines are in around the world. And if let's say a machine was offline during their scheduled run. Let's say on Friday at 4 o'clock, it was supposed to run a patch job, and there was a 0-day patch included in that. Let's say there was a very high vulnerability patch that needed to be ran. And let's say that end user, or end users, let's say, they shut their computer down and took it offline for the weekend. They left early a little bit. Well, on Monday, when they come running around and they open their laptop back up, they haven't been patched. They missed their schedule. Well, with this option here, I can say, go ahead and run it. If they were offline, go ahead and say, oh, well, looks like we had a schedule set for you to run on Friday and you missed it. Well, go ahead and start it, and I'm going to give you 30 minutes to get your Outlook going and check a few emails, and then it'll start. Or I can just say start right away. As soon as it comes back online, start patching it. And then I can even say end it after a certain amount of time. Or again, I can just say just run until it's done. And at the end of the day, once I have all my schedule set up to patch on my machines, I can have reports set up to either show me a summary report. Maybe I want to show I have some C-levels asking me about how patched are we. Someone came up to you and asked, Bruce, how patched is our environment? I need to know. Can you give me an overall report that shows me that? And I can say, yeah, absolutely. I just clicked this link right now. It ran this report. This is the current data I have on all my machines. It shows me each machine's percentage and actually how many patches are missing on each one. And then I can even get a summary at the very bottom. I can say, we are 78% patched on critical patches for our environment. Okay, that's what I need to know. Or maybe we're at 98%. Whatever it is, I can have that available in one click away. So that covers the patching part of it. And again, this will cover not just the operating system patches, but those third-party applications for both Windows and for Mac. So let's say you have Macs too. This also covers Mac. So if you want to patch your Mac operating systems and third-party applications, this will do that as well. So now we've got everything patched. We've got an automated system now set up to patch all my machines. I've got reports that can send to me to let me know how good my patching's going. Now let's say I want to go out and go further than that. Okay, a lot of vulnerabilities, you know, CVEs if you call them, they are a lot of times related to a patch. So I'll go in here to the Oval catalog and just look at some of them here. I'll let them load up the definitions. So some of these are, Crossleak and WebGL, DevTool extensions. So some of these may be specific application vulnerabilities. Some of these may be Windows vulnerabilities. Whatever they are, a lot of times they just relate to an update that's needed on them. I'm just going to click on one of these here and let's see what it kind of looks at here. So this is making sure that the definition is if Image Magic is installed, it makes sure it's at this version or higher. So if it's not, updated to the latest version, right? And that's what a lot of these are. But some of these are configuration things. So it might say, okay, well, it needs to be on this version and it needs to make sure this option is on or off, or this configuration change needs to be made. So whatever those are, we can go out and scan for all those, and then we can actually get a report ran that actually shows me the results of that. And actually, I need to show it from this one. So let me switch to this guy here. So I'm going to go to my Oval scan results here. So this will actually run the report, and it'll show me how many machines we've tested, how many were vulnerable, and how many were safe. So right here, it looks like I've had one machine tested for a lot of these, and it was vulnerable to these. And it actually gives me all the details about it. So I can get this random report and emailed to me automatically as well. And it'll actually tell me what needs to be done to actually resolve it. Again, most of the time, it's going to be a Windows patch or a Mac patch. So this will let you take care of that. So again, to recap, first starts with being able to discover all your devices. You can't know what doors you need to lock unless you know how many doors you have and know what you have in your environment. And two, being able to push out your antivirus software and keep it up to date. And three, being able to patch all of your Windows, Mac applications, operating systems, including third-party applications, and being able to scan for any kind of vulnerabilities you have. That kind of catches us up to, so let's say you have all that done. You know all your machines, you know what's on them, you have your antivirus installed, you're keeping them patched. You've done your best there. You said, Bruce, I did those 3 steps, or those 2 steps already. I've got everything patched. I'm scanning for vulnerabilities. I'm keeping track of them, and I still got a vulnerability. So what happens then, right? So I'm going to switch back over here to kind of go over that next part here. Come on now.
Yeah,
and
I'm curious.
Reimaging, right?
That's right. Yeah, how to quickly react to reimage systems if you suspect an endpoint infection. And in fact, a question came in here and they're asking about reimaging. How hard is it to reimage a system when you think it's infected?
Yeah, that's a good question. So to be able to reimage a machine, I'll actually show, instead of flipping back over to the presentation here, I'll just kind of show it right here. So I'm in my deployment appliance now, and you notice it probably looks pretty similar, a lot of the same color schemes, but we've got different menu items over here, deployment, library devices, and this is our systems deployment appliance. Again, deployment meaning bare metal system imaging, so being able to image a machine. So here's what I can do to do that. So I'm going to go here to my device inventory on my deployment appliance. And let's say this is that machine that I need to reimage. I can check a box next to that machine or machines, you can do more than one if I want, and say I want to do a boot action. Create a boot action, and I'll just call this vulnerability reimage. And I'm going to say, okay, those machines are just going to get my gold master image. So here's my new gold master image. and I just hit save. And then all I have to do is tell those machines to pixie boot. I'll power them off, tell them to pixie boot. I can do that remotely too from my management appliance. I could actually push out a script. Let's say it's still online and working. I could actually push out a script from here that says, go reboot it, and then actually set the pixie boot. So I can actually come in here and run a script that does that. I think I actually have one in here. So I'll go to that here. We'll say we reboot. So there we go, restart a Windows machine. And then I could target those machines from here. And then it will automatically start that job. So when I create this here, this is called an automated deployment, a boot action. I can tell it when it reboots, install this image. And it will, as soon as it hits the deployment appliance over the network boot, it'll automatically start pushing that job out to it. And what that looks like, I'll actually bring up an image here to kind of show you what kind of steps it'll go through. So I'm going to bring up this one here. So here's my images. I'm going to scroll down here to these colorful little boxes here, these little purple and blue ones here. So this one, it's going to grab any user state data that's on it. So I can actually grab their, like, my documents and settings and things like that off of there. It'll format the disk, so it'll completely wipe it. I could even go a step further, and there's tasks we can do. We can do a DOD level wipe. We can actually really, really wipe it. If you really want it completely gone, you can go that deep for it. And then it will deploy the image, which will actually install Windows. That's what will happen here. And then it'll do any other steps I have a part of that. So if I wanted to go ahead and put Office back on and to put their user state information back on, put WebEx and Reader, I can have it put all that stuff back on that machine. So really the customer, the end user, I should say, shouldn't even really notice a whole lot's changed, because they'll have the same applications back that'll have grabbed any user state information off of there and put it right back on. Or if, let's say in that instance, all right, I don't want their user state anyways. If it is really infected, I don't want anything pulled off that machine at all. It's totally gone. I don't want to have any risk of some kind of ransomware gotten their user documents or something. So I could say, don't do that. Don't pull off their user state. And then I can just hit save, and then I can push that image down to them. So I don't have to redo a whole job. I just dragged a box over, right? Pretty simple. So that's how easy it is to, I'll kind of recap here, okay? To reimage a machine remotely. I just go find that machine in my inventory. I set a boot action, tell what image I want, then this will drop down here, hit save, just have it do a pixie boot, and I'm done. I can walk away. When it's done, it'll be sitting at a walk-in screen. It'll have all the applications on there. It'll be joined to your domain. It'll have all the drivers injected to it. You're ready to go, and you can hand it right back to the end user. Okay, you've been reloaded. You're clean now. Just a few clicks, you could have their machine reimaged.
Very nice. I'm curious, here's another question. They're asking about out-of-band antivirus scanning. Is that possible?
Yeah, so good question. So I'm going to bring up here, I've actually got a virtual environment. I was going to actually show what the pre-boot environment looks like. So the way we would do kind of an antivirus out-of-band scan is I'm going to bring up the interface here. So this is a machine. I got a virtual machine here. I've just booted up into our pre-boot environment. So there's a couple of built-in tools in this already. So like the recovery section here. Let's see if I can click on that there. So this has some things like you can get to Notepad and registry edit and things like that. So, but you could also include other third-party tools inside of this boot environment. So you can actually add other programs to it. So in that, you could have it run through like a command line. You can actually say, okay, I have the application installed in here, run this and do an antivirus scan. So now or let's say you had a completely different pre-boot environment. So instead of including it in the boot environment here, I know some antivirus tools have their own pre-boot environment for doing out-of-band scans. You could have that pre-boot environment loaded on our deployment appliance. And then you could actually do a pixie boot and boot to that. And they can just choose it from a little drop down when they boot the machine up. So you could do that too. So either way, we can, however that antivirus out-of-band tool is designed, we can have it kind of set up in here for you to run that too.
Very nice. Very nice. So moving from step 3, where we quickly were able to reimage systems that we thought were infected, step 4 then is to track and manage mobile assets remotely. So I'm curious, what type of mobile devices can you all support, and you know, what else can you do with that? Can you track them throughout the entire life cycle?
Yes, absolutely. So with our Case Cloud Mobile Device Manager, your iOS and Android devices, we can completely control. We can keep track of not only what's on the device, we can also keep track of, you know, we can actually push changes to that. So not only can we see like what applications and things are on there, but I can actually push out new apps to it. I can ensure it has a passcode set. I can wipe the device. And then I can even keep track of things like when it was purchased, who I gave it to, when I expect it back, you know, what cost center was it assigned to when it was purchased, those kind of things, as well as those security standpoint things like setting a passcode, wiping it. I can actually wipe it fully, or I can do a selective wipe and then just remove the end user data, or leave the, remove just the company data and leave just the end user's data alone, let's say for a BYOD type of setup. So either way, we have all, you know, basically all your bases covered for managing your mobile devices. And I'll kind of show that here. So I'm going to, again, kind of switch back into my interface here and kind of show you. So here from our mobile device manager, I'm going to bring that up here. And I've got a device just kind of selected here. So I've got an iPad here. And again, we do iPad and Android. I think the minimum version of iOS is like version 8. That really don't have to have it can be a fairly old device and we can still manage it. And with that, all you have to do is enroll the device. So you can click on enroll device here. This will give you the instructions that you can either send to your end user, you can email it to them. Once they have those, basically they just click next, okay, once they go to that URL. So they'll log in, they'll follow those instructions, or let's say you're doing it for them. Let's say this is a company-owned device. You can have it done there. And once it gets enrolled, it'll install whatever settings you've set up in here. So if you say you set some apps to get push out, it'll push our apps out to them. So in here, I can go get apps from the app stores from both iOS or Android, or I can upload my own custom apps and I can have those pushed out to those. I can push out certificates. So maybe there's certain servers you have that have certain specific certificates they need to be able to access that. I can have those pushed out to there. I can push out Wi-Fi networks. So let's say you don't want to have to give out your Wi-Fi code to just anybody. You can say, all right, well, nobody gets it, but as long as you enroll in my MDM tool, or Case Cloud MDM tool, be specific, you get all access to these Wi-Fi networks. So all they have to do is enroll, and these will automatically get installed in their device, and then you could even set it to auto-join those when they're close to it. So they really don't have to think about anything when it comes to their Wi-Fi networks when they're in your office. Along with that, you can set up their VPN network. So if you have VPN network set up for them, you can actually create different sets for those. We support probably 4 or 5 different types of VPN connections in there. You can also ensure that they have restrictions set. So maybe there's different types of restriction sets you want to set. You can do those. You can make sure they have a passcode, just making sure they have one. You can say, okay, it has to be at least 4 numbers, or you can make an alphanumeric, or you can't use the same ones, you know, the last 3 times or 5 times. Or you can say to wipe it if they put it in wrong. And you can also set up their email, calendar, you know, contacts. You can set up their Exchange or Gmail, Google, Office 365 email accounts. You can get that stuff set up for them as well. Along with those things, you can do things like you can actually push firmware updates to iOS and Android. You can turn on a lost mode. If they get lost, you can actually send them a message and actually put a phone number on there. And then you can also track it as well. You can see on the map where it's located, and even if it's moving or what the altitude is. You can set wallpapers, you can clear restrictions, you can disable hotspots, lots of options you can do for those. And that's for iOS. I'll show you Android here as well. Along with those, again, if let's say the device gets lost, you can just factory reset it completely back to factory for those company-owned devices, or I can unenroll the device, and that just removes the company data. So any apps or settings you pushed to that end user device, when you unenroll it, we just remove that stuff we pushed to it, and we leave their personal data alone. And along with all those things we can do in there, since this is our own software, and we like to drink our own Kool-Aid, so to speak, I can actually view the same devices that were over there in my management appliance. So I kind of talked a little bit about being able to track any kind of device, no matter what kind of, you know, whether it's a laptop, desktop, server, printer. So from my inventory here, I can actually keep track of all my mobile devices as well. So I can keep a special group of just my mobile devices. I'm going to switch over to those now. Now I can just view just those, and they integrate and sync over here directly, and I can even do things like reset passcodes and things right here from my mobile device management. So let's say I wanted to be able to, set the passcode or clear it or reset it. I can do that right here from my management appliance even, as well as see all the apps that are installed, the device name, the free space, lots of other information available here right just from the management appliance. So again, from a security standpoint, we're able to not only keep track of the mobile devices as part of this kind of, this keeping everything secure, keep track of them, inventory them, know what's on them, making sure they're secured and locked down, and then be able to protect that data in the event that it gets lost or stolen. So now we've covered discovering your devices, right? Any kind of device you have, we kind of covered. We can keep track of it in here for you. Not only just keep track of it, we can automatically track it for you. We can know what's on those devices, know how they're configured, and be able to lock those down from the device standpoint. So now we've talked about that. Let's move on to the last and final step of kind of keeping track and not keeping track, but securing your endpoints. And that's the admin rights piece and the USB and external device access.
Yeah, and this actually brings me to a question here. Leonard asked, he said, security is unfortunately inconvenient sometimes, and he was wondering, when you restrict USB access, how do you balance that against some people who maybe need USB access? Maybe when you do your demo, you can talk about that as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great question, because kind of like with, let's say I gave you the keys to my house. I got to go out of town for the week, and I need someone to watch my house. So I give you the keys to my house, and with those keys, it lets you get into my house, and it lets you get into the living room and the kitchen. That you get in the back door and go check and make sure that the back door lights are on and all that. But with that same key, it prevents you from getting access to the bedrooms and prevents access to certain channels on the TV and prevents you from getting to certain shelves on my refrigerator. So all my really delicious foods I have in there and wait for me when I get back. Sorry, you get those. You have to wait on those. So for that gives someone the ability to watch my house, but they're only able to get to the things they need to be able to watch my house effectively. And it doesn't give them full access to the bedrooms and the drawers and the dresser drawers and the closets. This just gives, they don't need access to that, right? So why give them full access when you can just give them the least amount that they need to get their job done? And that's kind of where it plays into not only the admin rights piece, but the USB device access piece. So you can actually give them, you can have a lot more control over what you give your end user from that standpoint. And I'm going to kind of go into that a little bit here now. So in the little demo, I'm going to switch over here to my environment again. And I'm going to go in here to my desktop authority session here. So I've got a client open here. This is just a regular client. So I'm going to start with the administrative rights piece. So I'm a regular user. All Susie Q here. I'm logged in. I've got my desktop up here. I got a couple applications I need to run through. So first I'm going to go through here is BleachBit software, and then I'm going to go through a couple of these other ones listed down here. So let's say I'm going to run BleachBit. I download it from the web. I'm going to run the setup file. It says, okay, well, it's already installed. So, all right, it's going to let me uninstall it and reinstall it. So great. Okay, close. Cool. I uninstalled it. I'm going to click agree, hit next, install. Cool. So even though, if you notice, it had that little shield icon over here, meaning it needed admin rights, it still let me run it. All right, great, cool. I don't need to run it right now, so I'm going to turn it off and click finish. So now I need to run 7-zip. I got some 7z files someone sent me, and I need 7-zip to extract them. So I'm going to run that, and oh no, what's this? Do you want to make the enter your admin credentials? No. Okay, I don't have admin rights, so I'm going to click no. So darn, I guess I can't do that. And then, oh wait, what's this little box here? This looks nice. Would you like permissions to run this? If so, what's your reason? I need to unzip some 7z files. Actually, no, I'm going to give a more realistic answer an end user might give. Let's just go ahead and backspace that. I need this now. We'll go with that. All right. So let's just say someone just sent you that. Okay. So, all right, well, I guess I can't do that now. So I'm going to move on to my torrent file here. So I'm going to try and run this, and oh, darn, okay, I cannot run it. You may not have the appropriate permissions to access this item, okay? So what happened in the background here is Privilege Manager. I had a rule set up that allowed for this user to run BleachBit, so it let me run it. It didn't have one for 7-zip, so it blocked it, said, no, you can't run that. But it gave me an option right there from the user interface to let me request access for it. So instead of just sending just a blank email that just says, I need this, there's some, and I'm going to show you, and actually grabbed all the details about that process and sent it to me so I can see exactly what they were trying to do and on one exact machine. And then for uTorrent, actually let me blacklist that software. So anything with the word torrent in it, basically it said, nope. Or from that vendor, I can say, no, you can't run that. Or that specific process, you can't run it. I can actually block it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch over here to the Privilege Manager interface and kind of show you what that looks like. So we'll go first to that self-service elevation request. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to look at that request. And this gets emailed to you as well. So you can actually go from that email and come here to the console. And then I can actually process this request right here. And I could say, okay, here's all the details. It gives me the EXE name, the checksum, the version, who did it and where and when, and all that good stuff. And I can either say approve right here, or I can say deny and say, no, you can't do that. So I'm going to be nice and say, yes, you can. And then I can say, no, don't send an email. But I could also send them an email that says, hey, it's been approved. You can now run this. I hit finish. It'll then create me a rule. And then I can even edit that rule further. I can say, okay, well, maybe I just want to allow this to run from any directory. So I can put a wildcard in there. I can say, well, I don't mind anybody running this software, and then actually they can run this version or greater on there. And then, okay, maybe I don't need to make it so specific that it's just that specific file. So I'll take out the checksum. But I could actually say it has to be from a certain publisher. So I could actually browse to a publisher. I'm just going to pick a random one here. And it'll actually pull the publisher name right out from the publisher file there. I can also, if this site, maybe it's a rule for a folder path, I can give people access to certain folders. I can give them access to certain ActiveX publishers or URLs. So maybe you can install anything from WebEx or from whatever tool you have. And there's also even certain scripts you could give them access to or installer files that says, okay, you can only run these files or these scripts, and that's it. I can then target these exceptions using our patented validation logic. So I can say if this is a workstation running Windows 8 or Windows 10, then if you're in this OU or this machine group, or maybe I can just say, you know, I'm just going to make this available for everybody. So I want to target this person's OU they're in. I'm just going to let anybody from that OU do it. So any from that user OU, they can do that. I can hit next, 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 okay, and finish. And then that will create the rule and push it right back down to that machine, and then that end user can then run it. I could also go a step further and say, all right, well, maybe some users I trust a little bit more. Maybe, you know, some of them I trust, you know, them maybe just slightly more. So I could even give people instant elevation rights. So when they right-click something, they can say elevate, and then we'll actually elevate that process for them and let me run it. So notice when I clicked that, it went right into the setup install portion instead of going to that UAC prompt. So that actually let me elevate that and run the installer for that. And what's great is, as an admin, you can see when they do that. You can actually get reports on when they instant elevate things. And you can, as easily as you can give them those ability to do that, you can take it right away very easily, right from that console. So to kind of take a step back here again, with Privilege Manager, I was able to give the access to the certain tools that they need to have access to. I was able to provide them a self-service outlet to be able to request access to tools that they don't have currently access to. And for things that I know for sure I don't want to run, I can actually blacklist certain publishers or processes from that. So that kind of covers, you know, giving end users at least privileged, you know, access from an admin rights standpoint. So let's look at the device security standpoint. So I'm going to flip over here back to my interface for my server here. And I'm going to bring up what we call desktop authority. So desktop authority, I like to kind of lovingly call group policy on steroids, because it does some things that group policy does, but we do it a lot more efficiently, and we can do some things that frankly group policy can't do. One of those being USB import security. So from here, I can block certain types of USB or external device control. Notice that this name of this is called USB/port, not USB port. It means it doesn't control just USB devices, it's any kind of device. So basically all the different types of permission types. So I'm going to kind of zoom in on this a little bit here. So let me bring this up over here. I'm going to bring up some different lists here. So notice we have like Palm devices, serial ports, USB to ports, USB printers. So they're kind of categorized by different types of what kind of device they are. And then I can give them certain kinds of access. So let's say I want to edit this. I can say, okay, well, you can only do read access. I'll hit edit here. You can only do read access to USB ports. You don't have full control. I'm just going to give you certain control. Or maybe for printers or scanners, I can just say, nope, it's denied. Let's go into a different kind of step. Maybe just USB storage. You can only read from that. You can't write to it. So, or maybe external Wi-Fi devices. Nope, can't do that. So this is letting me control what kind of things that they can do with whatever kind of classes of devices. And to go a step further from there, let's say I apply these different sets of rules to different sets of users, again, using the validation logic I talked about on the privilege manager. I can also give exceptions in different ways. Maybe there's certain end users that you want to give a company-issued USB device. You can actually input the details of that USB key right here. You can give it the serial number and things like that, and post it in there. So they can then access that device on whatever kind of devices you want to allow it. You could just simply say maybe I target this and say anybody that's on my domain, and I'll kind of show what that would look like. So I can just say if the computer domain is my domain, I can go browse for my domain name here. I'll just click the little top level here. Then they can use that USB key. But if they bring a one from home, so I'll pick my DAMS domain here. If I try to do that from some other key they brought, it's going to go, well, nope, that key is not one of my exceptions, so you can't do that. I could also say, well, maybe I need to walk over to someone's machine, and I've got some recovery tool things on my trusty dusty little USB key. Or maybe they did bring one from home, but okay, you don't want to have to come in here and make an exception specifically for that one. Well, you can go into the little systray icon and put in an override password that lets them temporarily access any USB key. And then whenever they disconnect it, it turns it back off. So this gives you even another way to give them access to external USB devices in here. And then along with not only controlling what they can do, you can log if they've had successful accesses or failures on those. And we have a built-in reporting part that lets you actually run reports on that to actually see if devices have actually accessed files or not. So you could get a full history of that as well. So kind of to recap, we talked about being able to control not only the administrative rights piece in an effective way, not just giving them kind of all or nothing when it comes to admin rights on their endpoint, but also being able to give them just the selective access they need to their external devices, such as USB keys and things of that nature.
Really cool demo. I'm loving the demos, Bruce. It looks like we're starting to reach the top of the hour here in our schedule, and I want to try to get to some of these great questions that have come in. You ready to do some Q&A?
Let's do it.
All right. So there's so many of them. We'll try to do them quickly. Richard is asking, will it deploy other software? I think you covered that, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. We can definitely deploy any kind of software. That's any kind of file you have. You can throw it at the case systems management appliance, and we'll push it out. Okay.
BYOD wipe. You covered how you can selectively wipe just the company's data if you want to do that, right?
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yep. So from the MDM interface, you can simply just say unenroll, and I'll kind of show it here again. So if I go to more actions, I can say unenroll device, and that will just unenroll it. So that means it's just going to remove what the case mobile device manager has pushed to that device, leaving all of their other email accounts and contacts and photos. It leaves all that stuff alone and just removes any company information we push to it.
Okay. Paul is asking, can it integrate into a ITSM such as ServiceNow?
Yes, it can. So our systems management appliance, we've had several customers already successfully do that. And there's certain levels of integration you can do. Let's say you want it just be able to pull over inventory information from the management appliance. We could do that. Maybe you want to go a step further and go, okay, I want someone to be able to do, maybe they request certain software through ServiceNow, and if it gets approved, go ahead and install it to their device. So it actually looks at their device and inventory, sees who requested it, and pushes that approved software to their device. So you can go any level of integration you want with Case on that.
Nice, nice. Morgan is asking, can it work with regional offices or devices in, multiple offices so that you don't have to deploy Case in those offices?
Yes, that's a great question. I'm going to show a little diagram here. So I'm going to bring up a different little slide I've got here that actually shows what that would look like. So give me just a second here and I can show that exactly. But to answer your question simply, yes, it can. We can actually do that. So let me bring up this slide here. Go over to my little diagram here. And this works both with the management appliance and the deployment appliance. We have a method for handling remote sites like that way too. So from the management appliance, we can have your typical communication from an on-site premise, right? We have a machine talks to the server, and then we can also control devices that are even off network. So all we have to manage those devices is port 443, and just has to be able to resolve the name of the appliance. So we can pull that over there. And then we can also handle remote sites. So let's say you have something like over an MPLS network or a site-to-site VPN. We can pre-stage any dependencies like patch files or scripts or things like that to those remote sites, and then they'll get pushed out and to basically access from a local standpoint instead of all these devices connecting back to the main site. So basically a distributed network. So it lets you distribute out to these different what we call replication sites to be able to keep your data over the remote connections, the VPN connections from getting saturated, but still manage it all from a central management point.
Okay, nice. There's a couple questions here about the licensing model. Is everything you showed here today included in one, or are there different editions? How does that work?
Yes, good question. So I'm going to come back to my fancy schmancy little slide here. So from what we looked at for the Swiss Army tool was the one I'll start with first. So our systems management appliance, it's going to be able to cover your inventory, asset management, patching, software distribution, service desk. It does all that here in the systems management appliance. And then there's the deployment appliance that does the reimaging part. So imaging the Mac and Windows devices, that's what that'll do. And then there's the Case Cloud Mobile Device Manager that does the MDM management. So all of these are all separate pieces that you can purchase either together or separate. So if you want to be able to do just the imaging, you can just do that. If you want to be able to do the USB control and the other user device management, you can do that. If you want to do the admin rights control, you can do Privilege Manager. But these are all designed to kind of complete the user and device in Unified Endpoint Management, basically.
Okay, excellent. Let's see. Would Case work for an MSP where there's multi-tenancy segregation?
Yes, absolutely. So we actually do have MSP programs and pricing for the management appliance and the deployment appliance, and our Case Cloud Mobile Device Manager as well. I'm not sure on the Desktop Authority and Privilege Manager if we do. Wouldn't be surprised if we do. So we probably do have pricing for that, but that's a good question. But the other three, we definitely have MSP pricing for.
Okay. Well, I think that's all the time we have for questions. We've passed the top of the hour. We'll do our best to get back to all these questions that were asked. There were so many great questions. Before we go, do you have some resources you want to share with us, Bruce?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to bring up a couple other pieces here. So give me just a second here, and I'll kind of bring that up here for us. So yeah, couple things to kind of just wrap up here. Let me find the little button there to share the presentation out there. All right. So next steps. So we have a great little video here we can share with you after we're done here. It's over our Nick the IT Ninja, how he battles cybercrime. It's available on our website. I'll leave that up here for y'all if y'all want to go ahead and go grab the link for it. So So this kind of follows the life and times of your typical IT admin. You know, some of the problems that you may face and how we're able to turn you into a ninja, basically, and how we can make you the master of your domain from your endpoints management. We've also got a security white paper that kind of covers those 5 steps we went over today. So this goes into a little bit more detail on kind of what kind of vulnerabilities are out there, how it can affect you, and how we can help resolve those vulnerabilities for you. And don't just take it from us. We have lots of different customers out there and their testimonials on how this has helped manage their environments from different types of company enterprises. So from medical endpoints to financial institutions to education. There's lots of customers out there that have shared how we've been able to help them with that. And I think, Dave, I think you had wanted to talk about who the winner was for the
right.
The gift card.
That's right. Yeah, the winner of today's $300 Amazon gift card is Ruth Henson of Colorado. Congratulations to Ruth Henson of Colorado. And I think that's all the time we have. I really have loved all the live demos, Bruce. We got a lot of feedback from the audience as well that they appreciated the live demos. So great job doing that. Thank you, Bruce, for being on the event today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
And thank you everyone out there for joining our event. I hope that you learned a lot about endpoint security, and I hope that you'll use this to help you to better protect your endpoint devices and protect yourself from ransomware in the future. For more information, of course, visit the links there. I put them in the chat box, quest.com, and also check out the white paper that's available there in the handouts tab for more information. Have a great day and see you on the next event.
All right. Thank you very much.